Hi, this is Ollie at the Crafty Whisk, and I thank you so very much for joining me today. Doing ink swatching again today. Probably getting bored of these ones, but some people really like to see how I do it. These are Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively saturated inks, and you can buy them singly in groups of 3. When they come in groups of 3, they're packaged in the group of 3, or you can buy them in a kit, which I think is 15 ink pads. I got these, I ordered them at the Black Friday sales because Simon Says Stamp had 30% off, which here in Australia equivalates to 20% off because we have to pay 10% GST. So I bought a few to add to my collection, so I thought I'd swatch them all out. I made tags this time, which is something I have not done before, but I thought it would be handy to see how they blend together on the back and how they react with water when water is spritzed onto them. I think I might actually do this for my oxides and my distress ones as well. I've changed up my storage for the foam daubers. Instead of the tall towers, I've gone for this little box which has 30 grids in it, and I label each individual grid on the lid and inside the box as well. I thought it might be easier for me to store in my small room. I also printed out the ink swatch guide. I think I've got all of them listed on there, and I've allowed gaps for if Simon Says Stamp actually add any more to the collection. I've written all of them down, even though I don't have all of them. The tags I've used a We Are Memory Keepers tag punch, but you can also use dies. There's plenty of different ones out there. This one's from Waffle Flower, and this is the Waffle Flower stamp set that you can use in conjunction. I do use the block stamp, as you can see in my Misti pad there. It is stained, but don't worry, it doesn't actually impart that stained colour. Now this bit here is a bit of a blooper, but I've left it in just to show you that we all make mistakes. I'm trying to get a good ink impression while I'm leaning on my Misti. Don't do that. You need an actual solid surface to actually do your stamping on to get the correct image. And now having to stamp it 3 times, which does not give you a true indication of what colour it's going to be on the first stamping, which is what I always go by. So I finally twigged that the Misti's underneath, so put it onto my craft mat instead. I'll try and link, if I can, my Word document with the ink swatching pages there for you to download for yourself if you want to use mine. I haven't put them in number order of the ink pads. I've put them in groups of colours, like the yellows going to the oranges and then the pinks and so on and so forth. So here I'm correcting my mistake. I'm just got a small little cube of paper, stamping it the once, and then I'll cut that and stick it onto my page so I don't have to redo the whole page. I know I do the ink swatching on a lot of different pieces of paper, but I actually use all of them. This sheet of paper goes into my folder with all of my swatches for everything. That way I know what colours I actually have when I go to purchase more, so I know not to double up, because believe me, I'm sure you've done it, I've done it, everyone's done it. You've doubled up on something you already have. So with the inks, this gives me a guide when I go to do an order of what I already have. And the tags is just handy for me to have at the desk so I can match it up with different papers or Copics, watercolours, all that kind of thing. So I'll see how that works. If it works well, I'll continue it for my other stamp pads as well. Now I've actually marked on my Misti where I need to pop the tag for the different colours and the individual little 2-inch squares. The 2-inch squares I pop into a coin folder and I bind them all together with a hinged ring, and they sit behind me so I know all of my inks at a glance what colours I have rather than having to dive back into my folder. I know it's a bit of double handling, but my folder contains my Copics, my watercolours, my textures. It contains everything. So this way all my inks are held together, and you can remove the little squares out of there if you need to match it. I have printed off all of the colours, and I've printed it off 3 times using my Brother label maker. Once goes onto the actual tag above each of the names. The other 2 go onto my sponge dauber display box or storage box. I used to just handwrite all these, but I thought with it's a big swatching day for me today doing this. I'm not only doing my Simon Says, I'm also doing my Gina K and some of the new oxides that I got in. So my handwriting by the end of the day would be trash. Now these little squares, I printed up 2 sets of those ink swatching sheets, and then I cut one of the sets down into the 2-inch squares. I thought that would be easier than me having to handwrite them. And it worked out really well. So I might actually do this for all the future sets that I buy. The one thing I will tell you is when you go from a light colour to a dark colour, and then from the dark colour back to the light colour, I suggest, even though the stamp is clean, stamp it a couple of times with the light colour, because in some of the Inkpads, who was notorious for this, Catherine Pooler, and some of the Gina K ones, even though the stamp is clean, some of the colour resides still, and I found it bleeding through my light colours. So just stamp the light colour out a couple of times till you get a true indication of what the light colour actually is. So with my blending, I am just using the sponge foam domes onto the ink blending tool. You can use the brushes, whatever you fancy. This way I've actually got a foam dome for each colour ready to go without having to really think about it. And then depending on what project I'm doing will depend on if I use the dome or a brush. I'm not spending a lot of time getting the blending done perfectly. It's just an indication for what they look like when they're blended and how they react with water. So I'm going to spritz it 3 times with the water because it's a very fine mist bottle that I have. And then, because I'm in a hurry, just dry it off. I've used 80-pound Neenah cardstock. That would be the minimum I would use. I'd probably err on the side of using the 110-pound next time, because once you spritz it with water, it seems to weaken the paper a little bit. I'm just putting some reinforcing rings on the top so that they don't get damaged with all the pushing and pulling. And now to actually make the tag, like I said, you can use a die. You can leave them just rectangle as they are and just punch a hole on the top. Or else I've got a We Are Memory Keepers tag maker that I've had for a long time. And I just pre-cut my paper to 2 inches by 4 inches and then popped it in the tag maker. It makes 3 different sizes of tags, this particular tag maker. It's pretty clever. And it cuts beautifully. So I'm finished with this trio. And that's the good thing with the Pawsitively saturated inks. They come in a group of 3, light, medium and dark. So the blending is really, really nice if you want to do gradient blending. So now I'm just going to get my next 3. And I just kept on doing this. They all come individually sealed as well. And like I said, I already had some, but I didn't want to do any ink swatching until I bought some more. And 30% off is a little bit too hard to miss out on. So due to the magic of television, I'm going to now flip to when I've finished doing all the ones that I have and just show you what it looks like. It looks really nice with the printed forms instead of me just haphazardly stamping. And that's the coin pockets. So I've got the ones that I still am yet to get. I've popped the empty little squares in there. And I've just made a header page for the tags so I know which inks are in there. It's just pretty plain. And to protect them, so make sure you store them out of direct sunlight because they will fade. And see the blending side. As you can see, the blending's not perfect. I didn't need it to be perfect. It's just for ink swatching. And when the foam daubers, I actually store them upside down so I can see which colours are in the box, so I know which box to grab. And I've labelled the bottom of the box. I hope this helped you in some fashion. Please let me know. I'll see you later.